and it's about control. This whole thing is about control. It's about creating a new feudal system here. Extreme haves, extreme have-nots, wiping out the middle class here. I've been telling people for I don't know how many, for a decade, that if they're a member of the middle class, they have a tattoo on their face in the shape of a target.
And it's recording. Hello, everyone. This is Piero San Giorgio. I'm very, very happy and honored to have today as a guest on my show, Gregory Mannarino. Hello, Gregory.
Hello there, Piero. Great to meet you finally. I'm happy to be here, and I think this is going to be exciting.
Yes. So as I was saying, a friend of Gerald Celente is a friend. Therefore, I'm sure we're going to have a very interesting and productive discussion. A lot of my audience is French speaking. However, they do get English. And a lot of them, like me, have known you from a viral video many years ago that went around the internet, like millions of views, and then was censored. And from there, I've been following you, and so happy to see you in the Trends Journal as well. And you're one of the few who have dared to tell the truth, or at least what we think is the truth, or at least to point the problem of where we're going and where we are now. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do for the people who don't know you?
Well, I started out on YouTube during the last financial meltdown. Actually, I started this because I was angry at the system. I was upset at what was happening to people, myself included. And all of a sudden, it just kind of really just took off. People, appreciated what I was saying. I have a financial background. I worked for a Wall Street bank many, many years ago. I got to see what this is like kind of from the inside a little bit. So really, that's what got me started here was unfortunately witnessing what happened to people during that time, myself included, some of my very good friends. And I just started talking about it. At that time, I was a practicing healthcare provider. I did work in the health field for 20 years while I was actually doing this YouTube thing. It really just started out of, concern, really, and it just took off. I mean, people enjoyed what I was trying to say and, the things I was talking about. So what I do basically is I try to put a perspective on what's really going on, not what's being forced down our throats by the mainstream propaganda, and people know the truth when they hear it. And I think that's really why my channel has been successful, because I give it to people as straight as hard as I can. I don't sugarcoat anything. I kind of don't really, I hate to say this, but I don't really care what people think. I want to tell people, if they connect with me, that's great. If they don't, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. But if people can't handle hearing the hard, cold truth about the system, how it works, how it's rigged against them, then they really probably shouldn't listen to my channel, because that's really what I'm all about, exposing the dark side of all of this. Unfortunately, most people are on the losing end of this. It's designed that way. The system has been fully weaponized against them. And what I try to do is, instead of sitting here or anywhere, either on an interview like this or on my own blog, I just blabbing about it. I want people to not just only understand what's happening to them, but what they can do about it. People can sit back and talk about nothing and run around in circles, but what are we going to do? Okay. What I've been trying to tell people for the longest time is this whole system eventually is going to come apart. It already is as of now. We've been seeing this for a while. It's being systematically dismantled. This is central banks here. They're going to issue in a new system here, period. The end. We have this global phenomenon of inflation. It's out of control, although it is being done by design. Central banks collectively, if you know my work, you kind of have a perspective on what at least I feel how this is going here. And it seems to be playing out pretty much exactly that way. So I ask people to come together, support each other, realize we're not each other's enemies, no matter where we are in the world, and realize that the mechanism is it's all about dividing us and keeping us separated by every mechanism you could dream about, and that's how the few have controlled the many since the beginning of time. But there's more of us than there are of them. If we were able to get this together, people to come together, and we could, hopefully, I think we're all making a difference. People, channels like yours, channels like mine, we're getting through to people who have the ability to maybe think outside the box a little bit. Most people can't. They've been so deeply indoctrinated into what they believe or are perceiving as real, as it's being broadcast to them by the mainstream. It's really a psyop. It's a form of brainwashing on an insane scale, and they're keeping people in line. Accept what's given to you. Then they float out the so-called authority figures. This is how you should live your life. I mean, are you kidding me? Really? Is this what we've come down to here in the United States? That's really what it's come down to. People here, I mean, honestly, I think the people in the United States are the most dumbed down in the world. I talk to people everywhere, like you, okay? But the people here in the United States, they have no clue. They don't know what's happening. I talk to people on the streets, friends of mine who just don't get it. They don't see what's going on. They'll complain about it. Oh, I'm paying more for this, and my house is losing value, and blah. But they don't understand why it's happening and how this is happening by design. They believe that these so-called selected people that are put into office here have their best interest in mind. We have no representation here in the United States at all. Zero. Our votes don't count. We have no voice. No one's getting anything done here. And this whole thing is engulfing the world, not just the United States. It's going down the toilet. It's going down the toilet faster. Anyway, with that said, I think I'll shut up for a moment.
No, for sure. And even for us, I live in Switzerland, home of reducing number of banks lately. But certainly, I noticed that very few people are literate. First of all, in financial education, they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand the game is rigged, and they don't understand how finance and banking works. I'm subscribed to both I check your blog, and I'm subscribed to your YouTube channel. In fact, I just listened to you 20 minutes ago on your today's live. So I listen to you every day. And Thank you. For people, one question that comes to me is for people who link to you today, sometimes it could be difficult to understand where you're coming from because you have such a long history of explaining. Could you summarize for people who discover you today, what's the process? You mentioned that they are rigging the game against us. In fact, you mentioned a few times that it's like a reverse Robin Hood. They steal the poor to give to the rich. If you summarize the last 15 years or whatever length you think you should summarize, what was the process to lead us to the point where right now?
Well, unfortunately, I think it comes down to who people actually believe controls the world. It's the banks. It's the central banks of the world. They control it all. I mean all. They control the flow of information. They obviously run the entire economy of the world. They run the financial markets, the entire financial system. They have the power to pretty much do anything that they want to. What has been going on here? I mean, since the inception or creation of central banks, people have watched a process that is the purchasing power of their currency evaporate. And it's evaporating. I mean, for example, the US dollar has lost about 98% of its value since 1913, which just happens to be the year the Federal Reserve started rearing its ugly head here. So this process it's been slow. It's kind of like the boiling frog syndrome. They're creating or they're exterminating people literally on a grand scale, making people dependent on the system. Meanwhile, at the same time, dismantling it today. And that's really what I want people to understand is it's the banks that control everything here. They're the ones that finance wars. Just as an example, they're the ones here that are sitting here pulling cash into the now via their debt-based system here. Most people have no idea that we have a debt-based system. People that I know that are educated, okay, college degrees, lawyers, who are And I explain to them that we have a debt-based system. They look at me like, what? Yes, I mean, they don't understand that the system is not based on wealth whatsoever. This fiat monetary system run by central banks, all it does, once we went off of a commodity-backed system or a gold-backed system, we went on to this fiat system. So mote it be, so let it be, basically. That's when we started to lose here. A system backed by a commodity would restrict spending. It would, in theory, stop war. A lot of things that I think some very smart people wanted to do here in this nation here, for example, when they started it, it all got flipped upside down. When the central banks saw an opportunity to get in here, establishing the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency by guaranteeing military protection of oil from OPEC nations here, by establishing the fiat system here, it started robbing people of their wealth in an accelerated way. And today, I mean, like we just said, the dollar is just about done here in its current form. And people sit back and they wonder what's going on, but they don't understand the system, how at its core it is debt-based. And being that it's debt-based, it must continually be fueled with more and more and more debt, exponentially, can never stop. The nanosecond that we stop, the whole system implodes here. It's debt dependent. This is why you got things going on all over the world right now, reasons to pull cash into the now. And the central bank's power resides, any central bank, their power resides in only one thing, their ability to issue debt. And the most bizarre thing about this is, all of us here, we all work for a central bank issued currency. Okay, we work for the right to borrow that currency from the issuing central bank. We don't own these bills. They're not ours. They're owned by the issuing central bank, owed back to the issuing central bank, plus interest they create out of thin air. It's their product. It's not ours. No matter how much we may have in our bank accounts and how many zeros we may have, it's not ours, it's theirs. And again, this system is just so twisted, and that's why people are on the losing end and why it's completely rigged against them. And then, it goes beyond that too. I mean, if you want to look at the markets themselves here, how they're just completely manipulated. What has central banks been doing here since the last meltdown? Keeping rates suppressed. They've been on a debt creation binge since the last meltdown, just to reprop up the global stock markets, real estate markets, and they've created distortions that are just so immense in the financial system that at one point it's going to get very real here. The interest rate suppression scheme that central banks have been involved in has created a monster. It's a Frankenstein monster. It's a hyper bubble, and the whole world is engulfed in it. And when this thing comes apart, and it's going to here, and we're going to see a meltdown in the debt market that's going to wipe out global stock markets, and cash is just going to move. As I've been telling people for years, it's going to make its way into commodities, I believe. The most undervalued in the world right here. Silver, my favorite asset of all time. I don't sell this stuff, so I'm just telling people the way I see it. Crude oil, other commodities as well. And I think cryptocurrencies are going to also, right now the market cap of cryptos has been decimated just over the past year or so. But I think that's going to change too, because cash doesn't fly away to money heaven, as you probably heard me say. It moves. It goes from one reality into another. And the fact is, this risk-on environment, meaning cash moving into world stock markets, since central banks have taken over the entire system to the highest order by keeping rates suppressed here, it's going to turn around, and it's not going to be by accident. It's all of this is by design. I think I covered a lot there.
Yep. No, for sure. And what is very puzzling for people, I'm certainly not in the Fed papers, they don't call me, is that this seems to be, as you just said, a design. Therefore, it means that either they're very smart and they know what they're doing, or they want to achieve something, but they are going to destroy the system that enabled them to be powerful and wealthy. What's going on? Because it seems to me that they are shooting themselves in the foot in the long run, and worse than the foot, in fact.
Well, what I've been telling people, what I want them to understand is central banks here, we are living in the side effect of monetary policy and policies altogether that central banks have put into effect a long time ago. They know where this is going. This is a very methodical. if you've ever read The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is basically goes over, have you read the book? It's a fascinating read. It basically covers what the grand plan is of central banks, and that is to eventually own it all, own the world here. It all started with this debt-based system, getting their stranglehold on the people of the world. I mean, a central bank essentially has only one product and one tool, that is the manipulation and creation of debt. Central banks issue debt through one door and they buy it back through another door. It's a revolving mechanism and it's massively inflationary, and that's why we're seeing this global phenomenon occur here. Central banks, what have they been doing? They've been raising rates, raising rates, raising rates. Has it stopped inflation from rising? No. It was never meant to do that here. They're just cutting off the availability of credit to especially small businesses around the world. They want to get rid of these things. No competition. It's the corporate agenda, a worldwide corporate agenda, which is being fulfilled here, period. So central banks, again, now that they have a stranglehold on the system and they have created an enormous dependency on their system, it gives them all the power that they need. So eventually, what they're doing here, again, they want to move to this completely new digital system. This is what they want to do. And it's about control. This whole thing is about control. It's about creating a new feudal system here, extreme haves, extreme have-nots, wiping out the middle class here. I've been telling people for I don't know how many, for a decade, that if they're a member of the middle class, they have a tattoo on their face in the shape of a target. They're being targeted, but meanwhile, there's no revolution and there's no revolt. Why? Because people have been made dependent on the system, their system now. As they are dismantling the system, there's going to be more dependency created on the current system. Then, of course, in my opinion, there's going to be a major event here. That's what they need to do to get this system rolling here. And they already have their scapegoat set up. It's the war. They're going to blame it on war. They're going to blame it on China. They're going to blame it on Russia. They're going to blame it on whoever they got to do. So because, again, the central banks have to remain spotless. They get everything right all the time. And of course, again, once this occurs here, and I think it's going to be a meltdown in the debt market, melting down stock markets, people are going to be, help us, help us, help us. Okay, we have a solution for you. It's always the same. And that's what they do. And that's where we're going here. It's going to be more control, more power, and it's going to be concentrated in a lot smaller institutions. Look what they're doing here at the banking system here. They're getting rid of the smaller institutions, the regionals. They're going to be consolidating this, and they're already into the larger, I've been calling it the collective, the large banks here. But I think there's also going to be, the big banks are not going to escape this. Okay, we're seeing all these issues with the smaller banks here everywhere, as you just mentioned earlier here. But this is going to, again, fewer larger institutions, less players are easier to manage than a whole bunch of these things. So that's where we're going with that whole thing. So, people need to be ready. And I think people that follow me, my work, are ready for what's coming here. They know it because I've explained this to them for over a decade, how it's going, more than likely where things are going to go. And it seems to be playing out exactly that way. All we need to know, people, is who the enemy is. And in my view, it's central banks who are public enemy number one, and what they're trying to achieve. That is to own it all. They've already let us know what they want to do. Okay, they already have their product. The whole entire world transacts in their single product. It's an amazing thing. And then you can't transact in gold or silver. Oh no, that's bad. You can't transact in a cryptocurrency. Oh no, that's bad. But of course, central banks are going to issue their own version of a cryptocurrency, which is totally different than what we're used to in the crypto space here. I mean, people who own cryptocurrencies, are they transacting in it? No, they're not. They're holding it. Central banks are going to be issuing a digital currency that people will transact in. A totally different asset class, in my view, is going to be created here. What else can I say? But that's my take on this whole entire thing. Did I miss something?
No, I think on your blog you have an index. Is it Mannarino Market Index, or maybe I have the wrong name?
Close. Mannarino Market Risk Indicator.
Risk indicator. And it tracked. I've been looking of this for the last 6 months, and it tracks very well the ups and downs, and mostly ups, in fact, of the market. And what is it based on, and what does it track? Perhaps you can tell us.
The MMRI, which you refer to, it basically measures risk in the market, in the stock market, in real time. It looks at just a couple of metrics here. It looks at the 10-year yield, which is the benchmark here in the United States, and the relative strength of the dollar. I use a little math here, and it comes up with a number here, and that number is color coded. Right now, the MMRI is sitting in a high risk zone. It's free to everybody, right on my website, traderschoice.net. I want people to take advantage of this thing here. We've been stuck in a high risk zone for a very long time. You see, what's going to end up happening here is we will see a time when bond yields are going to spike. In other words, the 10-year yield is just going to go wherever we're sitting today and make a 10 basis point hike, and then another 20, and then 50. It's just going to go bang, 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 bang. We already know where the red lines are. The MMRI has told us where the red lines are. 250 is that first red line in the sand. I think we're at 211 or 212 right now. 300, remember when we hit 300 the last time, I mean, pretty much all hell broke loose. So we know it does work. It could go way, way, way higher. It could be in the thousands at one point. But we're going to see this MMRI spike when we start to get this meltdown in the debt market. You know, central banks have been suppressing rates now since the last meltdown. It's an incredible thing. And it has created what people need to understand. Okay, when we're looking at the debt market here as a whole, what are we talking about here? We're talking about literally the backbone, the spine of the entire system, and every other asset derives value from what's happening in the debt market. So this is why I think the MMRI is such an important indicator here. Now, eventually understanding that the debt market here is the backbone of the system, and everything else, including the entire stock market, including currencies, are all deriving value from what's happening here, and real estate too. I mean, everything. Off of that, when we start to see this debt market meltdown occur, everything is going to start to get real. When you have a situation where central banks have literally gotten into the debt market and bought it all, essentially it creates malinvestment. Cash moves into things where it shouldn't be and moves out of things where it should be going into. And this creates massive distortions that exist across the spectrum of asset classes. And all of this is going to get very real. For example, talking about commodities here being incredibly suppressed. These are real things. I think the most suppressed asset is silver, physical silver. Why do I say that? It's very simple. I look at a couple of metrics, and I urge people to do their own homework on this. I look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average gold ratio, the ratio of what the Dow is to gold. And then I look at the gold silver ratio. Right now, the gold silver ratio is like 88 or 89. It's really unbelievable. Historically, it's somewhere around 15. So eventually, I think what we're going to see is, because we've had this malinvestment and cash moving into assets where it shouldn't be going into and coming out of things where it should be going into, we're going to see, again, a meltdown in the debt market, which is going to wipe out global stock markets eventually. And where the bottom is, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Okay, with regard to the Dow, what do we know about the Dow? The Fed jumped in here at 6,000 to try to stabilize the market here. That was quantitative easing one. The bottom could have been much lower than that. But if we just say theoretically the bottom is 6,000, I think we could easily hit that again. I think people are not going to believe at how low the Dow could possibly go in a full-on meltdown of the debt market. Gold and the Dow are going to be on par with each other. Dow 6,000, gold 6,000, and then silver could even hit 10 to 1, which would be $600. So, I mean, you know, if it's 15 to 1, we're looking at a stunning, shocking move here with regard to precious metals, which are real money. They've been real money for thousands of years. No central banker is going to tell us that's not true. So that's really how I look. I look at everything from a macro perspective. And then once I look at the macro picture, I kind of zero in on things here. But from a macro perspective, I've been pretty much spot on. And it's only because I study this stuff constantly. I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm trying to put things together to the best of my ability, and then allow people to, you know, tell these things to people. And then again, I want people know the truth when they hear it, like we said earlier. Okay, so does it make sense what I'm saying, or is it just completely doesn't make sense to you at all? And that's okay. If it doesn't make sense, that's fine. But if a bell just goes off, say, hey, you know what? This sounds almost right. start doing some research. Think about these things, because I can't imagine this playing out another way with regard to the debt market meltdown, hurting, killing, crushing the stock markets, cash moving into commodities, cryptocurrencies as well. Then we're going to see other things too. What are they doing? We're going to see shortages of commodities, shortages of assets, shortages of food, water as well. I mean, whatever they got to do to bring the world to its knees and have us be slaves to their new system. That's what they're going to do. It's crazy to think about, but I really think it's leading that way.
What could possibly go wrong there? However, a question is, do you think this is a global scheme, or is it something that let's say the world that is under the boot of the United States deep state, because it's not the people of the United States, of course. Is it global, or is it partitioned into areas that fight, in fact?
Well, there obviously are places around this world that are trying to disconnect themselves from the dollar here, and I think that's a problem that could lead to an expansion of war. The Fed will not give up their the dollar reserve status without a fight for it. I mean, they've already killed in wars. The entire Vietnam War was established. It was fought to establish the fiat monetary system. And they will kill as many people as they need to. It's really right now is the European Central Bank and the Federal Reserve. If you notice, these two institutions do everything in lockstep. Lockstep. The Fed does something, the ECB does it. ECB, Fed follows. It's an incredible thing. So it's these two institutions that are really trying to run the world. And I know, is it going to lead to human suffering on an unprecedented scale? Absolutely it is. I don't think there's going to be a place in this world that people are going to be able to hide from this. And if they have to drag the world into a global conflict and vastly reduce the population via any mechanism they can come up with, don't put it past them. They will do that.
That's very interesting, because my first book, which was a bestseller 12 years ago, was reaching to the same conclusion, except that I was coming it from a depletion of resources and scarcity. And I was thinking then it would be mismanaged and it would create an economic collapse. For what you're describing, the way to this collapse is through a massive recession, or even a depression, I guess we could call it. Now, from your experience, or perhaps your contacts, the people who are already making a lot of money and have been making a lot of money in the last 20 years in this system, because the people from Jekyll Island are dead by now, but the family are still around. Those families and those big fish in the big banks today and the Feds, which are making billions of dollars every year, what are they investing their money into? Are they just reinvesting in the market, or they are smart and they buy land and they buy assets and they buy gold, but they just don't tell us?
Well, of course they're buying gold. We all know that they've been buying gold. They believe they're buying silver as well here. You can look at the magnates, the really super rich people. What are they doing? They're buying land. They're buying farmland. More specifically, a lot of them are doing that here. It's just, you can see it all. They want to control it all. And what better way to control the population than via their food? And I think that is a big thing here. Food and resources and the scarcity of them. I think you're totally on target with that. And there's just no doubt that this is what they're going to do. They're going to weaponize everything. They already are. Everything that they possibly can. And then the lies and the distractions and the deceptions that you hear out of the mouths of the mainstream, I call them the propaganda ministry. I mean, it's just more, just the other day, this is an incredible thing. I'm sitting there and I'm watching CNBC, and there was the PAC West and a couple other banks were under some pressure. And then they floated out a commentator to try to blame the weather. They blame the weather on what's going on. They'll point their fingers, and some people might buy it, because there are a lot of people that that are into this whole climate change thing. Oh, that's it. They're right. It's the weather. Some people can believe it. In fact, I got called out by a guy because I called that out. I said they're trying to blame the weather. Some guy actually came after me, wrote this big long thing to me how it is the weather and it's global warming, and that's really what's bringing down the system. I mean, it's like, look, people can have whatever they want to believe, and that's fine. And people sometimes feel safe. They have to do these. They have a little safe place, and they always run to that safe place to shelter themselves because they can't handle it. You tell people just the slightest bit of truth, they just go crazy here. But but honestly, look, it looks like we're on the same page, you and me at least. Like I think a lot of people like you and I, we see things because it's just so obvious. We know who the players are, we know what they want, and what's the best way to control the people? Okay, food, resources. That's what they're going to absolutely go after that. I've been telling people I think they're going to. Water is a big one too. If you want to invest in something, invest in water. I think that's a big one too. What did we find out just today? They were talking about what they did. They just killed thousands and thousands of cows. Right now, just today, they're talking about how the herds are they're just shrinking. They don't know why this is happening, but the herds are shrinking. Make it up. I tell people, make this stuff up. You can't make it up. And then again, having control over the monetary system more so than they already have. I mean, what people don't understand, the system is already mostly digital. They feel some kind of security in being able to hold that bill that they don't even own in their hand, or they love the zeros in their bank account. And when we transfer over to the new system, which is going to happen, it's just a matter of how they're going to do it. I think a crisis is going to come first. And that's just going to give them more control. I mean, it's all about control. They want to control the population. And I'll tell you something else. I think they want to reduce the population too by a large amount. What other better way to control people than to have less people to control? I don't know. Maybe I sound like a little bit out there, but it just seems to me that this is the way it's going here. I'm not saying anything that I believe is completely written in stone, and I could be wrong, but for the most part, it sounds right. I mean, to me at least.
No one can be sure 100%, and we have to trust a bit of our instinct, because our instinct tells us from our subconscious of information that we may not yet have processed, but that we have collected. So
I like that. It's so important what you just said. I tell people, listen to that little voice in your head. We all have like a God-given gift of intellect. Use it. Use that. Use it. Does it make sense to you? Do what you see happening or no? Okay. And some people just can't. And I know, and there's nothing wrong with these people. They just don't see things that way, and maybe they don't want to. But I think there's a natural selection going on too. I really been telling people that for years.
Well, for sure, it's funny because now people say, how could you know 2 years ago that we shouldn't have done that medical procedure that everyone pushed us to do, and you told us not to do it, and we're so glad you told us. How could you know? I said, I didn't know. I just knew. It's that voice, it's that instinct that tells you, doesn't sound reasonable, doesn't sound scientific, doesn't sound like it's good for us. Therefore, gonna pass. So we cannot say what it is, of course, because otherwise. but you see the thing. So, and I think in finance is a bit the same. It's probably more complex though. But so people should. I follow your blog and should connect to your YouTube channel. They should get on your mail list. You communicate quite a lot, and perhaps to summarize, because I tell in my books gold, silver, but also land and learn to grow food, even if it's a tiny bit of your own. And what would you tell people that are listening to us, besides connecting to you, to do to prepare for this massive upheaval that is coming?
You know what I've been telling? I every Friday, and you probably know this, I leave people off with 3 things. 3. I say, love each other, care about each other, and be charitable. Look, what this comes down to is we need each other. Okay, they don't want us to need each other. They want to keep us locked up in our houses and wear things over our faces so we can't see an expression. We can't interact on a human level. They're doing everything they can. And whatever they're going to throw at us moving forward is going to be a lot worse. To keep us separate. That's how the few have controlled the many since forever. It will never change. So just realize that we're not each other's enemies, that we need to come together, get together with like-minded people. Everything you just said here, learn to grow food, land, obviously. Look what the rich people, mimic what the banks are doing. What I've been telling people since day one is bet against the debt and become your own central bank. That means holding these things, okay? With regard to land, what do we know the richest people are doing? They're buying land like crazy. That should tell us something here. They're also buying hard assets too. So, we're on the right page over there. And people should seriously know how to sustain themselves off of the land or off of something. That's one thing that I am seriously lacking in. However, I do have friends of mine who have the ability to do that. And they're like, Greg, you're always welcome here. So I have an out, you know what I mean? But it's so important to be self-sustaining. At the same time, you got to get together with people that are like-minded too. And I think there's a lot of people that are like-minded. People are starting to wake up. They're seeing all this thing. You know what it is? People know something is wrong. Maybe they can't put a finger on it, but they know there's a problem. And I think when people listen to shows like this, they go, hold on a minute now. I think I have a handle on it, maybe a little, as to what's going on, what the bigger picture is. So that's what people should take away from this.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for those advices. Stay online. I will disconnect. And for all of those who are listening to us, please go check. It's traderschoice.net.
Yes.
I will put all the links in the description below. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope we'll speak again.
I hope so too.
Take care.